call the names of presenters, and I have a little bit to say of each of them, and then everyone would share either works by maybe famous artists that you may have heard of, or original arts that we created ourselves. Next, we will have Joyce, who is bringing an original work, something that she created herself. Joyce is a ninth grade student, and a painting is one of her hobbies. She is sharing one of her favorite paintings with us today.
The art that I'm showing is this one. This is one of my favorite paintings because of, sorry. This is one of my favorite paintings because of how I really didn't have like a sketch or anything. What really happened was I had this vision in my mind and I painted it on a canvas. That usually happens to artists where they think of this crazy creative idea in their head and they're like, could I capture this on a canvas or a paper? And I'm glad with the outcome of what I have created in my head. And my message to you is whatever you're thinking of, whatever creative, imaginative, crazy idea in your head, just paint it. And even if it doesn't come out of how it looked out in your head, it's just good to get that idea out. And that's all I have to say.
Thank you very much. Our next piece will be from Seminar. He is a high school student from Bengali who is trying to spread awareness about the justice that needs to be done to fight justice, even in things such as simple biases in the classroom. He chooses the two poems that he is about to read today because both authors are influential individuals for the African American cause that needs a little more recognition. So, come on.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Saminar. I am from Bangladesh. Just to give a little context for the poems that I'm about to read, the first poem I'm going to read is called Black History. It's made by Gil Scott-Heron. He was a very famous jazz and blues musical artist, but he was also an author and poet who tried to make music and poems that tried to urge people to do action in regards to the racial injustice that was happening during the 70s and 80s. The second poem I'd like to recite is called Who Am I? It's written by Angela Davis. Some of you who have taken history classes might know that she's famous or maybe perhaps infamous for being part of the Black Panther movement and the Communist Party during that time. She was urging people to abolish the unstable and, in my opinion, brutalic prison complex during that time, and so she was protesting about that. Here is Black History by Gil Scott-Heron. I was wondering about our yesterdays and started digging through the rubble, and to say at least somebody went through a hell of a lot of trouble to make sure that when we looked things up, we wouldn't fare too well, and that we would come up with totally unreliable pictures of ourselves. But I've compiled what few facts I could, such as they are, to see if we could shed a little bit of light. And this is what I got so far. First, white folks discovered Africa, and they claimed it fair and square. Cecil Rhodes couldn't have been robbing nobody because he said there was nobody there. White folks brought all the civilization, since there wasn't any around. They said, how could these folks be civilized when you never see nobody writing nothing down? And just to prove all their suspicions, it didn't take too long. They found that there were whole tribes of people in plain sight, running around with no clothes on. That's right. The young, the old, the women, and the men. Righteous folks covered their eyes. So no time was spent considering the environment. Hell no, this here just wasn't civilized. And another way they knew the folks were backwards, or at least this is how we were taught, is that unlike the very civilized people of Europe, these tribal groups actually fought. And yes, there was some rather crude implements, and yes, there was primitive art. And yes, they were masters of hunting and fishing, and courtesy came from the heart. And yes, there was medicine and love and religion, intertribal communication by drum, but no paper, pencils, or other utensils. And hell, these folks never even heard of a gun. So that's why the colonies came, to stabilize the land. Because the dark continent had copper and gold, and the discoverers had themselves a plan. They would discover all the places with promise. You didn't need no titles or deeds. You could just appoint people to make everything legal, to sanction the trickery and greed. And back in the jungle where the natives got restless, they would call it guerrilla attack. And they would never have to describe that somebody finally got wise and decided that they would fight back. But we are still victims of word games. Semantics is always a witch. Places once referred to as underdeveloped are now called mineral rich. And it seems like this game goes on, with unity kept just beyond reach. Egypt and Libya used to be in Africa. They have now been moved to the Middle East. There are examples galore, I assure you, but if interpreting were left up to me, I'd be sure every time folks knew this version was his mind, which is why it is called his story. You can clap. Okay. The second poem I'm about to recite is Who Am I?, written by Angela Davis. Who am I? I don't know. I know what I am. What label others apply to me? I am human, or so they say. But tell me something. What is so humane about our species? Something found in no others. Something humane. I am a lesbian, yes, a lover of women, but now I choose very selectively. Though weary of trust, I am starved for love. I am a crone, old and withered by life. I feel so aged and weary at times. I am sickened by what I see that others do not, even though I seldom see what is right in front of me. I am a child. I look about myself in wonder. Society constantly baffles my mind. I find happiness in the small things of life. I have experienced so little, but have seen so much. I still believe in love, so naive in matters of the heart. I am an author. I write many stories of loving, living, understanding, though I do not yet understand these things. I am a poet, at least that is what I'm told. My pen hardly touches the paper, and I think of what's important in my heart. My feelings flow freely in verse, and sometimes not. I am a pacifist. I abhor anger and violence. It destroys love, lives, and souls. I think there's always a peaceful solution if one is willing to search their heart and soul. Though it may be harder, let go of your pride and try. I am a survivor. Many battles I've faced. Somehow I always come out of them, but never whole. For it is not that simple. Along the way, I have had to make sacrifices, but here I stand in quiet defiance and always will, though I am tattered, battered, and occasionally shattered. Who am I? I think above all else, I am an individual. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Very powerful poems. Our next presenter will be Anaya Pittman. Okay. She is going to be a cardiac surgeon. Say that again. Cardiothoracic surgeon upon graduating from, I was about to say my college, such a big thing. From graduating from Upper Darby High School, that is what she's going to go study, and she will be sharing an original work.
So the poem is called The Story in Her Eyes. The story in her eyes. The story is so hurtful yet relatable. It's so sad but beautiful. That makes her eyes useful for herself. Her eyes tell a story with pain and pride alongside the words of cruelty and hurt. She keeps seeing and cries and asks, why are people? It's nor equal or even. She sees the lies taken, the story in her eyes. Beautiful but sad. They want everything we have. The story in her eyes, don't lie. It's hurtful but truthful. Only our people can see the story in her eyes.
Thank you. Next, we will have an 11th grade student who enjoys drawing. Miles, he is going to share an original artwork.
Everyone, this is Miles Fletcher. He's an awesome kid who I've gotten to know this year. We have breakfast together every morning, and something I discovered about Miles while getting to know him is he is an amazing artist. He's feeling a little bashful and vulnerable showing you his art today, but we knew that you needed to see it.
Sorry for being scared. It's my first time Yeah, yeah, this is my art. I'm very sorry if I'm stuttering, but yeah, I like drawing and stuff. It's my favorite thing to do. I did this like when I was like young. Yeah, I love it. But thankfully, I'm not sure. Sometimes I like to find ideas. I guess. Things want to do that. I like to.
Just say
Yeah.
thank you.
Okay. Well, now, thank you for. What did I say? Thank you for looking at my project. Thank you for my art. I guess.
Thank you, Miles. Thank you very much. Awesome artwork. And you did that when you were younger? That is really good. All right, next we will have Mr. Eric. Eric, you guys may know Mr. Eric. He works in the library. He has co-hosted this event with Miss Robinson, who is no longer here, every year since the very beginning. He will be coming to present to you the poem Leap Year Baby by Marilyn Nelson. And he chose this selection because it pays tribute to the prominent African American artist who was born on this day.
Leap Year Baby. Born on a date that in most years doesn't exist, the only recluse of the calendar. Born on the bonus day, the extra day, that falls every fourth year for some reason. Most people can't explain or understand. To age by leap years, 1 to every 4 years aged by ordinary people who sprint toward their end. A leaper's free to choose to celebrate on February 28th or March 1st or February 29th, thus choosing how old, how special to be. Leap year babies believe they are unique. They know they're born to make something happen. But all of us are born knowing that, right?
Thank you very much. Our next presenter will be Steph Lista. Miss Lista is a teacher here at Upper Darby. She's reading an essay from Audre Lorde, a Black lesbian poet, essayist, and feminist known for her powerful writings that addressed issues of race, gender, and sexuality. Her essay, The Transformation of Silence into Language and Action, advocates for breaking the silence to spark change and resist oppression. In it, Lorde stresses the importance of using language to confront others, connect with others, and to drive social transformation.
All right, this is from The Transformation of Silence into Language and Action. I have come to believe over and over again that what is most important to me must be spoken, made verbal, and shared, even at the risk of having it bruised or misunderstood. Less than 2 months ago, I was told by 2 doctors, one female and one male, that I would have to have breast surgery and that there was a 60 to 80% chance that the tumor was malignant. Within those 3 weeks, I was forced to look upon myself and my living with a harsh and urgent clarity that has still left me shaken, but much stronger. Some of what I experienced during that time has helped elucidate for me much of what I feel concerning the transformation of silence into language and action. In becoming forcibly and essentially aware of my mortality and of what I wished and wanted for my life, what I most regretted were my silences. Of what had I ever been afraid? We all hurt in so many different ways all the time, and pain will either change or end. Death, on the other hand, is the final silence. And that might be coming quickly now without regard for whether I had ever spoken what needed to be said, or had only betrayed myself into small silences while I planned someday to speak or waited for someone else's words. I was going to die, if not sooner than later, whether or not I had ever spoken myself. My silences had not protected me. Your silence will not protect you. What are the words you do not yet have? What do you need to say? What are the tyrannies you swallow day by day and attempt to make your own until you will sicken and die of them, still in silence? And of course I am afraid, because the transformation of silence into language and action is an act of self-revelation, and that always seems fraught with danger. But my daughter, when I told her of our topic and my difficulty with it, said, tell them about how you're never really a whole person if you remain silent, because there's always that one little piece inside of you that wants to be spoken out. And if you keep ignoring it, it gets madder and madder and hotter and hotter. And if you don't speak it out one day, it will just up and punch you in the mouth from the inside. Within this country, where racial differences create a constant, if unspoken, distortion of vision, Black women have, on one hand, always been highly visible, and so, on the other hand, have been rendered invisible through the depersonalization of racism. Even within the women's movement, we have had to fight, and still do, for that very visibility which also renders us most vulnerable. Our Blackness. For to survive in the mouth of this dragon we call America, we have had to learn this first and most vital lesson, that we were never meant to survive, not as human beings, and neither were most of you here today, Black or not. And that visibility, which makes us most vulnerable, is that which is also the source of our greatest strength. Because the machine will try to grind you into dust anyway, whether or not we speak. And where the words of women are crying to be heard, we must each recognize our responsibility to seek those words out, to read them and share them and examine them in their pertinence to our lives. That we not hide behind the mockeries of separations that have been imposed upon us and which so often we accept as our own. For instance, I can't possibly teach Black women's writing. Their experience is so different from mine. Yet, how many years have you spent teaching Plato and Shakespeare and Proust? Or another, she's a white woman, and what could she possibly have to say to me? Or, she's a lesbian, what would my husband say? Or my chairman? Or again, this woman writes of her sons, and I have no children. And all the other endless ways in which we rob ourselves of ourselves and each other. We can learn to work and speak when we are afraid in the same way we have learned to work and speak when we are tired. For we have been socialized to respect fear more than our own needs for language. And while we wait in silence for that final luxury of fearlessness, the weight of that silence will choke us. The fact that we are here and that I speak these words is an attempt to break that silence and bridge some of those differences between us. For it is not difference which immobilizes us, but silence. And there are so many silences that must be broken. Thanks, everyone. That's Audrey Lord.
Thank you very, very much. Next, we will have Chloe, an 11th grade student here at the high school, and she will be sharing some more original work inspired by events in 2020.
Hi, my name's Chloe. I made this one during core 2020, pretty much just getting home. And I watched CNN I think every day during that time, and if you're familiar with the Black Lives Matter movement, that was on around that same time. And there was a day where I'm watching it and I'm telling my mom, I'm like, I want to get down there. And she's just like, I don't know. And so I ended up being like, I just like seeing how so many different people can come together and express how they feel about something that should be talked about and not like gone away from like being scared to talk about it. So I ended up having another assignment to do for a different class. And he was like, express yourself about something that you are like, you feel strongly about. So I ended up making this, and it didn't take very long because I already like had a vision on what to do for it. And then this one I made also in 2020, but it was like farther in the months, I think. And I made that also for the same reason. I feel like a lot of things that people want to talk about, they don't really get to. And so I wanted to make these for myself because I feel like you shouldn't be scared to talk about something that you believe in, and you shouldn't be scared to talk about something that you care about or someone you care about or, yeah, anything. You should be able to express yourself in any way. And that's why I made them. So, yeah, that's it.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. And I love how our last two presenters, if you paid attention, their works kind of, they were on the same theme. It was about not being silent, and about speaking up about the things that you care about. And I love how we had a work from a famous artist and a work from one of our own. So that was great. Next, we will have Michaela. Betty is not here at this time, but she was going to read a poem titled Harlem by Langston Hughes. And Michaela was to be our final presenter of tonight. I would like to thank everyone for coming, especially those of you who decided to be vulnerable and come and share your own personal poems, your artworks. We appreciate that. Those of you who will be here next year, our 9th graders, our 10th graders, our 11th graders, please encourage yourself to participate next year. Maybe you want to bring up an artwork of your own or share something that you found, that you've read, that you've seen. That will be the conclusion of our program today. Thanks again for attending. Have a good night.